Hello out there. Welcome to Pcgtv Sports Time with Jerome. My name is Jerome Ochri. We've been having conversations about Ghana sports and sometimes specifically Ghana football. And today in the studio, we have someone who has covered not just Ghana football, but Ghana sports for a very long time. In fact, even longer than the period I have been covering sports. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, I'm going to introduce my guest and the show continues. Welcome back. For our scripture for today, I take you to the book of Acts. Acts chapter 26, verses 15, where it is written, "Who are you, Lord?" I asked. And the Lord replied, "I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting." We are not here to persecute Jesus. We are rather here to persecute the issues of sports. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, the persecution of Ghana football, all the issues in Ghana football will continue. Welcome back. As I told you earlier, our guest for today is someone who has been in this business of sports coverage for a very long time. In fact, if I can sit here and talk to you about sports, I would say he's been a contributor to my experience in this business. Because as a teenager in school, I was reading him. It is not to say he is old. It is only to tell you that he's very experienced in this job. And that is why Pcgtv is honored to have Mr. Maurice Kwanzaa, the editor of Graphic Sports, in the studio today to talk about a wide range of football and sporting issues. Mr. Kwanzaa, thank you for doing us the honors.
It's my pleasure to be on Pcgtv. I've been watching and following your exploits, and here I am today in your great studios.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, there's no way we can talk about Mr. Maurice Kwanzaa and not mention daily graphic or specifically graphic sports. As I told you earlier, I have been reading graphic sports over the last 20-25 years. But you know, very interestingly, today if you are looking for the graphic sports, and I want us to start a conversation from there because it is something I'm passionate about. I mean, I grew up reading graphic sports, I grew up reading Africa Sports and some of the other newspapers or sports newspapers. Today, unfortunately, you can't find them. And I don't believe graphic sports is dead or it's out. It is only that it has metamorphosed into something else. Tell us, where is graphic sports and what has been happening to one of Ghana's favorite sports newspapers?
Okay, let me thank you for inviting me. Let me say graphic sports is still alive. Previously, just as you said, when I was in school, I started reading the graphic sports when I was a teenager.
Even for you?
Even for me. And because,
I see.
And Jerome, let me say, next year, graphic sports is going to be 40 years.
Wow.
So when we were in school, I was reading, and let me take you back to, so when I was in Accra Academy specifically, we'll go and buy, you know, we're close to Kaneshi, so we just go across the street, buy one, and then we'll be reading, and then in between lectures and all that. And one colleague, we used to discuss football. Randy Abbey was also there.
I see.
So sometimes break time, we'll be having a lot of argument on football, cars, kotoko, and other things. And one of my colleagues, Colin Beden, he passed, "Hey, sports analyst." I'm sure if it's today, if he were to be, what do you call it, man of God in clerical college, we say it was prophetic because later on, Randy and I found ourselves analyzing sports and being there. But so back in the day, we needed to go to the vendor to. So if you're a bit far away, it means you needed to walk a longer period. But many years on, you don't have to go to
the newsstands.
Many years ago, when I'm sure you also, when we were buying sports. World Soccer and all those magazines, you had to go to Rona, which was just around. But today it's in the palm of our hands. By the click of a button, you have graphic sports. So that was it. I remember COVID when we had that lockdown, when everybody was indoors and there was nobody on the street because it was strictly being enforced. So there was no publication. But post lockdown, we said, what do we do? Looking at the trends, the world is moving more towards digitalization. We sit here, we read Wall Street journals and all the major newspapers. So why don't we also do that? So that Jerome will not have to walk all the way to the newsstand, but at the click of the button, you download the e-paper you keep, and then so that was the reason we did that, because it wasn't just graphic sports, but when you look at our whole portfolio of newspapers, so there are some which are still in print, but we decided first with the showbiz and then sports. And when you look at our audience profile, these are people who are upwardly mobile, who have the
smartphones,
they have
tablets, and those
PCs,
things,
tablets, a little data you download every. So that's the journey from hard copy into the digital world, so that people outside the jurisdiction, Ghana, at the click of the button, you have the paper and then all the things that come with it.
And I have to say that, look, I didn't want to say this earlier on. I wanted it to come from the horse's own mouth. I subscribe to the Graphic News Plus.
Yes.
And look, I'm not saying don't buy the hard news. I mean, the hard copy of the graphic newspaper or any of the other brands. But I'm saying that just in case you can't go for the hard copy, download the Graphic News Plus, and you have all the other news outlets for the Graphic Communications Group Limited on your phone, at your convenience, at your comfort, anytime you want to read it.
So whether it's raining, rain or shine,
you have it. I've been using it, and you pay something small and just have it there. So, I mean, migrating from you have not completely done away with the hard copies. But how has the experience been online? I mean, there's also the graphic, the graphic online.
Yes, so the graphic online, it's all part of what we've created, graphic digital. We will say that we are trying to sprint to, I wouldn't say within the print industry, we'll say we are market leaders.
Of course.
We are not market leaders. We may be chasers. I'm humble enough to say that others started before us, but we're trying to chase. And then I'm sure one of these days I'm going to invite you to our studio. We have an executive studio where we're coming up with some new programs. So it's all part of the digital migration. We don't want to be left. We also want to be on the cutting edge of technology. And where else do you study than a brander, an organization that's about getting to 74 years, a brand that will be 40 years next year. It's been very exciting.
I mean, you cannot talk about journalism in Ghana or media development in Ghana and leave out the graphic establishment. It is not possible, because if graphic sports alone is getting to 40 years, that's more than half the age of Ghana.
Yes.
So it tells you that this is a strong brand, and anybody who has been following news developments in this country will know that graphic has a place in our history when it comes to that. So let's now zoom the conversation, bring the conversation to our sports. What do you think has been the role of the media, and in this case, graphic sports, in shaping the development of our sports?
So basically, generally the media shines the light on sports. So we bring the sportsmen competition together. So back in the day when we started, we'll follow teams, just like you, sometimes we go to training and give them the story behind the scenes so that everybody will be following it. Of course, the advent of technology changed things a bit. So now there's real time. Today, previously you needed to read Jerome, Kotoko Express or Morris Kwanzaa, the graphics to know what happened behind the scenes and dressing room. These days, cameras are following everywhere. But over the years, we've been doing it, so the publicity and then even the advocacy. Back in the day, because coaches' eyes, for instance, will not be anywhere, sometimes a talent, a Jerome has been spotted at somewhere around Santasi, and then the right, so then all eyes on him, maybe scouts will go. And so over time, journalism, the role of journalism from informing, educating, entertaining. Today, we are in a knowledge-based era. So now you need to not just inform, but you need to also help change the narrative.
Yeah, there's a friend of
more very informed news, informed articles that will help change the narrative, and then advocacy, like sometimes what we're doing on Pcgtv.
Sure, that's true. I mean, there's a friend of mine who says that we just don't entertain and inform and educate. We also interpret the news. So
and help people make informed choices, because they know and believe that because you've been following your particular field, you speak with authority based on in-depth knowledge, based on experience, and then you help change the narrative.
And viewers, without question, Mr. Maurice Kwanzaa is an authority when it comes to sports journalism in this country.
We're still learning.
Oh no, I mean, you're an authority. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, the show continues. Welcome back. As I was telling you, Mr. Maurice Kwanzaa is an authority on sports journalism and sports in Ghana, because he's been in the business for a very long time. When I was in SS, when I was just about completing, he was then writing for Graphic Sports. So, and that's a long time ago, well, almost 25 years ago. So we should know that he started many years ago. So, Mr. Kwanzaa, with the knowledge you have, with the experience of covering sports in this country, if you are asked to make a general assessment of where sports is in Ghana, where will you put it?
I'm saying, based on where we've come from and where we intend to get in, juxtapose with what is happening around the world, I won't say we're on the decline, we are just stagnating.
Okay. And what do you think is causing the stagnation?
I think lateness to the market, to the extent that we were sleeping whilst others were working, doing the right thing. Sometimes I tell people, colleagues, that maybe is it out of arrogance? We think we are the best among God's creation. God gave us talent.
Someone says God is a Ghanaian.
Yes, so yes, we have talents, but talent in life, talent is not enough. In every field, talent is not enough. How you prepare. So even you look at the parable of the talents, talent is not enough. What you do with the talent God has given you. And today, talent is widespread. And I believe also that because of migration and all those things, today, let's just go to football. Look at the European football teams. Yeah, forget about Russia, those Albania, those within the Eastern Bloc, but come to the Western. Even countries like Denmark, countries like Norway, and we're beginning to see blacks, because of migration. And so those innate talent we probably were blessed with because of migration and people leaving elsewhere and then intermarrying. So talent is widespread. So if you don't manage talent well, you don't put in those factors that ensure success, those building blocks, you'll be found wanting. I tell you, sorry not to cut. What is Kenya noted for?
Athletics.
What kind of athletics?
The long distance, run.
So you
something from 800.
So the middle to long distance. Where would you find the test?
Jamaica?
No, in Africa.
Oh, in Africa.
Well, typically in West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, and a bit of Australia. Today, where is the fastest
Southern Africa.
No, the fastest African today.
It's-
He's from Kenya.
Oh, he's from
Omanyala.
Kenya. Omanyala, okay.
So it tells
No,
you
my
that.
mind went to Botswana.
Yes, but we'll go back to Botswana.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is that even though Kenya is noted for
long
long
distance.
but within that they've managed to spot
Okay.
a certain Omanyala.
Okay.
They've honed the talent, and today he's the fastest. So the fastest is not necessarily from West Africa, but Kenya. Just to tell you that God has blessed all of us with talent. So even among long distance runners, there's still a sprinter.
Yeah.
So if you are able to identify and hone that talent, put those systems around,
place,
you'll be able to maximize those talents. That's what we've not done well. That's what you mentioned, Botswana, and that's what some of them have done.
So what would have to be done? What do we need to do? I mean, the talents abound, and like you said, it's spreading. When you were mentioning the countries, my mind went to Belgium, even France. I mean, the French national team plays, and it's like the whole of Africa.
You mentioned Belgium. We have Ghanaians playing for the. I mean, Ghanaians playing for the Belgian national team.
Beyond the talent, beyond having the talent, what do we need to do? We need to. Is it a matter of working to develop those talents we believe we have, or just going elsewhere to learn what they have done with the limited talents they have? Exactly what do we have to do?
Let me connect it. Okay, I was fortunate. I think it was one of the reasons why I find myself here. So my dad was also into sport. Though he's a medical doctor, maybe fate took him many years ago. He was, I think, after Dr. Yahan Kansajan, he was the National Sports Council medical director. So you're more or less the de facto team doctor for the Black Stars and all those. And that's where it came from. We're having a conversation at home and about how we've stagnated. And he reminded us that when they went to the Kingston Commonwealth Games, after we dominated the Jamaicans, and they had some of their ladies to come here, live here, give birth, because they knew there was something in it. And then some of them came here, studied our system, and they replicated the Winneba Sports College system there, and then they've evolved.
I can't believe this. They learned from here.
Yes, because if you, at least even just reading history, we're dominating them. I remember the late Eni Agenteti in a conversation also corroborated what my dad said. So they realized that some systems were working elsewhere. So, and when, I'm sure when they traced, they realized that the slave trade, they took those guys from Ghana, Sierra Leone to Jamaica and the West Indies. So the system that was operating here, which the Nkrumah and Ohinijana built, which was producing those results, they replicated it. Just like the graphics example where we've moved from the print to digital, we need to learn the successful models are. Unfortunately, we've not evolved our systems, and so National Sports Authority,
because
we've not evolved to enable us develop the way we all expect to.
I find it very interesting that you are saying the Jamaicans came here
to learn,
looked at facilities like Winneba and replicated it. And our Winneba is turning into something else. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking to the director of sports at the University of Ghana, Dr.
Bella?
No, Dr. Lugiter.
Okay.
And he also alluded to what you are saying, that people came here and learned from here and are developing this elsewhere. So it clearly shows that we are not evolving.
We are not
as you are
evolving. We've been sleeping.
But we have to evolve. We have to come out of whatever shell we find ourselves and do as the world is doing. We'll go for a short break. When we come back, the show continues. Welcome back. So before the break, Mr. Kwanzaa was talking about why we have to evolve. The others have taken the lead. Look, if you take club football, for example, where our most glamorous clubs are today in Ghana, and compare it to where their peers 40 years ago are today, you know that we are really behind. We're talking about El Ali and where they find themselves today. So marketable. I mean, you think of them and you don't want to believe that in the 80s and the late 70s, this was a club that was a Kotoko peer.
A Kotoko peer. Kotoko was rubbing shoulders with El Ali, for instance, which is the most successful African team now. I mean, of course, then there was Englebert, which is today TP Mazembe. Yeah. Where was Mamelodi Sundown? Where were nowhere to be found.
But today they are
how El Ali and some of those other WAC of Morocco and others far about how they've evolved. 40 years today, El Ali looks like, I mean, some of the big clubs in terms of infrastructure, success and everything. And I was telling some friends, we were having a conversation on one of the Kotoko platforms I belong to that. Sadly, and I'm saying that respectfully, but some of them on the platform were not born when Kotoko last won Africa. And it's sad, that's 41 years ago, almost in line with the Black Stars. Because when our team, we'll come to that, but it tells you that we've not evolved, we've just been sleeping.
So apart from learning from what the others are doing, practically, I mean, as for the learning, I remember, I mean, you've been in this business longer than I have, but I know instances where teams from here went to, and I mean administrators, went from here to South Africa, to England, to Germany, to learn how, for instance, they are running their leagues.
Yes.
And we come back and our league is still what it is. Nothing attractive.
Nothing attractive, but I also say that, you know, we must be deliberate in everything we want to do. And we can't just leave it to the wishes of club officials. And I remember during Kwesi Nyantakyi's time as GFE, they went to Germany, they went to South Africa to learn some of these models. But I'm saying at those days when they call them good old days, when we were successful, when countries were coming to learn from us, it was deliberate. Nkrumah, before academics put something together called sports diplomacy, soft power, that was what he was doing. He was very deliberate. That's why he put certain people in charge. They were reporting directly to him. He knew what the power of sports could do for his, what they call it, Black Stars, Black Star of African thing, bringing African together, showcasing what the black man could do and using that for his own political. So he was very deliberate. So when the National Sports Council, before it was turned into the Sports Council, he had a different nomenclature. We had Ohini Jan there, so much power, so much authority, because the president had his eye on it.
Yeah.
Even many years when you and I were growing up, Kutwa Champo, he had Mr. Simpi Asante, he was interested in it. There were times when many years later, Jerry Rawlings, he was very interested. There were times when the late Arnold Queno was in charge of sports. There were matches. I wasn't covering, there wasn't a sports journalist, but I was told there were times the president would call them, speak with them, how things. They were very deliberate. So even if the FA, they send people there, because it's coming from the top, because it's part of a national agenda, they make sure that you're just not going on a jolly trip. You come, you enforce it. And then there's the NSC, well structured with the authority to ensure that things happen. But right now, everybody does what they want.
Yeah, it's listening to you and listing what presidents have done in their interest. It doesn't appear to me that if you take it from, you ended at Rawlings, if you take it from ex-president J. Kufuor to Atta Mills, I mean, God bless his soul, you bring it to President-elect Mahama, and then leave it with the current president, Nana Akufo-Addo. You can say that each of them has had a form of interest or some interest in sports. Yes. I mean, Atta Mills was a sportsman.
Yes.
J. Kufuor was a sportsman. A football person. What is it that even with this interest that these presidents have had, we don't seem to have hit the nail right on its head when it comes to moving the sports agenda forward, because it's still not what it should be.
But interest is just one thing.
Okay.
But to move the interest, to make sure that you have the right structured, empowered to do what they have to do, is a different thing altogether. So you have a President Kufuor was interested in sports, and how was the NSA, like how was the various federations, who were those running it, what kind of person, what caliber of people do we have running as well? Back in the day, they were secretary for youth and sports, and later we had ministers of youth and sports. Drill it down. What kind of people? What is their track record? What is their background? What is their level of experience? What is their appreciation for sports? Are they just there? Are they lame ducks? Unfortunately, for instance, the NSC, yes, legally is being cooperated to do what, but what do they do? Basically nothing, because it's the federations that run it. I mean, with the greatest of respect, look at some of the federations, look at some of the people running. What is their track record?
A lot has to change. Unfortunately, we don't have so much time to continue on this subject. I mean, we just about some few minutes to leave. But before we go, so we've talked about how our sports must evolve, how we must be deliberate. I like that point you made. Deliberate about the things we are doing, the decisions we are taking. The interest shouldn't just be there.
We must set goals.
Yeah, we
and
shouldn't just
pursue.
boast about talents.
Yes.
What about funding? I mean, just about 2 minutes to end this show.
But funding is, for me, funding is a product of how deliberate you are, what systems and structures. You don't expect manna to come from heaven. The systems, because you see, so if you are in charge, where are you going to get your funding from? You should be able to understand where you're going to get the funding from. What can you? Yeah, you should be able to identify where is the funding from. Just like the Presbyterian Church of Ghana. I mean, it's a huge. I'm sure you are clear about where your source of funding comes from, out of which you outline projects, you monitor, evaluate, and then. I mean, it's a church that's grown over the decades, and so and countries
200 years in 2020.
And yes, you see, so but they are deliberate. The church is deliberate about how it does, who even becomes the head. They are deliberate. You groom people to be able to manage expectation, manage everything.
So the sports sector must take a leaf from some of these things.
And that's why I'm saying we are not deliberate. Funding is always a key thing. Unfortunately, we've not been deliberate about how to secure funding. Let me just give you an example. This present administration, flowing from Isiama's period to Mustafa Yusuf. I remember I was part of at a lower level where they had a consultant putting something together to establish a